The sound of metal screaming under a key woke me before dawn, a shrill grating that made my chest tighten instantly. I bolted upright and rushed to the window, only to see a sight that made my blood boil. Karen, our HOA president, her wide frame hunched over my pride and joy, a cherry-red 1968 Mustang fastback. In her hand was a silver key, grinding mercilessly into the flawless paint as she sneered. The other hand held a can of black spray paint, and before I could even shout, she scrawled 3 crooked words across the driver's side. HOA trash here. My heart slammed against my ribs. That car wasn't just steel and polish. It was the last gift my father had left me before he died. The car we restored together in countless late nights under a flickering garage light. Now Karen, in her obsession with control, had carved her hatred into its skin. I charged outside barefoot, my fists trembling, but Karen didn't even flinch. She turned, smugness radiating from her like poison. Finally awake, she taunted. Maybe now you'll learn what happens when you think you're above the rules. Classic junkers like this don't belong in my neighborhood. You had warnings. Consider this your final lesson. Her voice was loud, shrill, designed to pull in the neighbors. And it worked. Curtains fluttered, phones lit up, whispers rose. She wanted an audience for my humiliation. But she had miscalculated. She didn't know who she was vandalizing, not really. To Karen, I was just another homeowner, just another man she could fine into silence. What she didn't know was that I was a federal agent with the Department of Homeland Security, currently working under quiet reassignment. My patience had kept me in the shadows, but as I looked at the mutilated body of my father's car, the patience burned away. This wasn't about HOA rules anymore. This was criminal destruction, an attack on something sacred, and she had done it in front of dozens of witnesses. I didn't yell. Instead, I pulled out my phone and began recording, walking slowly around the car so every gouge and streak was visible, every move of Karen's pudgy hand caught on film. Keep going, I said coldly. Make sure the world sees exactly what you are. Her smirk faltered, but she straightened, puffing her chest like a villain who still believed in her own power. Film all you want, she snapped. The HOA will back me up. This car violates the aesthetic code. I'm enforcing community values. The neighbors shifted uncomfortably, muttering under their breath. A few began siding aloud with me, whispering that it was too far, that damaging personal property wasn't in any rulebook. One teenager muttered, "She's lost it," into his phone as he live-streamed the whole thing. Karen spun toward him, screeching, "Don't you dare," but it was too late. The footage was spreading like wildfire. That was when the twist arrived. My partner, Agent Morales, who had come by the night before to review a case file with me, stepped out of the house, still in casual clothes, but with his federal ID clipped to his belt. He raised his voice so everyone could hear. "Ma'am, you are vandalizing federal property under protective registry. That vehicle isn't just a car, it's registered under the Historic Assets Act, tied to a federal investigation. You just crossed into felony territory." Gasps shot through the crowd. Karen's smug expression shattered, replaced with disbelief. Federal property? That's ridiculous. This is just some old car. But Morales was already flashing his badge, his voice steady as stone. "Step away from the vehicle. Now." The neighbors leaned in, recording every second. Karen's cheeks flushed crimson, sweat beading on her forehead. For the first time, she looked trapped, her arrogance cracking. She stammered. The HOA rules they override, but even she heard the emptiness of the claim. Federal law outranked her petty bylaws, and everyone watching knew it. I walked forward, standing nose to nose with her, my voice low but lethal. "You wanted to teach me a lesson? Here's one for you. Nobody is above the law, not even you." The silence that followed was electric, broken only by the hum of recording phones and the ragged sound of Karen's breathing. My father's car sat scarred but defiant between us, a testament to her malice and my restraint. Karen's shrill confidence finally collapsed under the weight of silence, and a dozen recording phones pointed directly at her. She stammered, trying to reclaim her authority, but her words came out jumbled. This is just neighborhood enforcement. Everyone here knows his car doesn't fit the standards. You all saw the citations I issued, but nobody moved to back her up. Even her usual loyalists stood frozen, their eyes darting nervously between my camera, Agent Morales's badge, and the gouges carved into the Mustang's crimson paint. The whispers grew louder, a current of disgust flowing through the crowd. "She keyed his car," someone said. "That's not HOA business, that's crime." I knelt by the car, running my hand over the jagged letters she had scratched deep into the door. The word trash glared back at me in raw steel. My throat burned, not just from anger but from the memory of my father's hands sanding that very door, polishing it, teaching me patience as he said, "A car is more than a machine, son. It's a story you carry." Karen hadn't just vandalized paint, she had desecrated a legacy. My chest tightened, and I knew there would be no turning back. Morales stepped forward, his voice crisp. "Ma'am, you are under investigation for destruction of federal property. You will remain on scene until local law enforcement arrives." Karen exploded, her voice rising into a screech that cut through the humid morning air. "You can't arrest me. You can't touch me. I am the HOA." The irony was so thick the neighbors actually laughed, a bitter, mocking sound that sent her face into a deeper shade of crimson. She lunged for the spray can, as if one more coat of paint could prove her dominance, but Morales grabbed her wrist with swift precision. She yelped and stumbled backward, dropping the can with a hollow clang that echoed across the driveway. And then came the twist none of us expected. From the corner of the street, a sleek black sedan rolled in, and out stepped Director Simmons, my regional supervisor at Homeland Security. He hadn't come because of Corinne. He had come to review a classified file with me later that day. But the moment he saw the crowd, the vandalized Mustang, and Karen shrieking like a banshee, he pieced the puzzle together instantly. His voice carried authority that cut through everything. "What's happening here?" Morales answered sharply. "Civilians committing vandalism against federal property, sir." Simmons's eyes hardened, his gaze locking on Karen. "Name?" Karen puffed up again, trying to salvage her pride. "Karen Dobson, HOA president of this subdivision. And you can't scare me with your little badges. This is my neighborhood, and I run it how I see fit." The words had barely left her mouth before Simmons pulled a small tablet from his briefcase and scrolled through. "Dobson, huh? Interesting. Your name's already in our flagged files. Complaints from other neighborhoods. Reports of harassment, misuse of authority, extortion through HOA fines." The crowd gasped again, neighbors murmuring in disbelief. Simmons raised his head, his voice like steel. "You've been on our radar for months. Today, you gave us evidence we couldn't ignore." Karen's bravado crumbled into panic. That's lies. Those are just petty complaints from people who don't want to follow the rules." But the neighbors weren't buying it anymore. One by one, they spoke up. Mrs. Liu from across the street shouted, "She fined me $400 for planting roses." Mr. Hernandez added, "She threatened to tow my son's car when he parked in our own driveway." Another neighbor held up a letter Karen had slipped under his door, demanding payment for unauthorized wind chimes. Each accusation piled higher, until Karen's voice was drowned in the storm of truth. When the squad car finally arrived, the officer barely had to ask a question. The recordings, the witnesses, the spray paint still dripping down my Mustang's door, it was all there. Karen wailed as the cuffs snapped around her wrists, her cries bouncing off the houses she had once ruled. "You'll regret this. I'll sue all of you. I'll take every one of your houses." But her threats had no teeth anymore. The neighbors who once shrank from her now stood tall, some even clapping as she was led away, her bulky frame stuffed into the back seat of the cruiser. The days that followed were a whirlwind. News stations aired the footage, running headlines like HOA president arrested for vandalizing classic Mustang and federal agent's car targeted by HOA bully. Clips of Karen screeching, "I am the HOA," went viral, mocked across social media with captions like, "When you fail civics 101. What Karen thought would cement her authority instead destroyed it publicly, nationally, irrevocably. Her trial was merciless. The prosecution presented not only the vandalism but years of fraudulent fines, harassment, and extortion uncovered after Simmons opened a federal file on her. One piece of evidence made the jury audibly gasp. A recording where Karen boasted at an HOA meeting, "I make more money off fake fines than most of you make at your jobs." It was the final nail in her coffin. She was convicted on multiple counts of fraud, destruction of property, harassment, and obstruction. But the real moment of justice wasn't in the courtroom. It was the night we unveiled my Mustang after restoration. A team of veterans and neighbors had come together, working late into evenings, sanding, repainting, polishing until the red gleamed again, brighter than before. At the block party, when I turned the key and the engine roared back to life, the crowd erupted in cheers. My father's legacy had survived, stronger than Karen's spite, and the community had been reborn around it. Now, when I drive that car down the street, kids wave, neighbors smile, and the Mustang is more than a machine. It's a symbol of resilience, of standing up to bullies, of reclaiming dignity from the claws of entitlement. Karen thought she could scar my car, my memory, my family's honor. Instead, she scarred herself, her name forever etched in shame. So tell me this. Was Karen's downfall the arrest, the prison sentence, the public humiliation enough justice for what she did, or do you believe people like her deserve even harsher consequences? Share your thoughts, because in stories like this, the line between right and wrong is something we draw together.